Hello and welcome to the Canada News with your host Divya Roy. Now let's have a look on the headlines. Canada truck driver kills Muslim 4 family members in hate. Canada former Cabinet Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould said that the time had come for the Prime Minister to change the law for Indigenous peoples. The tragedy that befell 215 children in Kamloops, British Columbia is extremely unfortunate. Now news in detail. A man driving a pickup truck slammed into and killed 4 members of a Muslim family in the south of Canada's Ontario province in what police said Monday was a premeditated attack. A 20-year-old suspect wearing a vest like a body armor fled the scene after the attack and was arrested at a mall. There is evidence that this was a planned premeditated act motivated by hate. It is believed that these victims were targeted because they were Muslims. The names of the victims were not released, but they include a 74-year-old woman, 46-year-old man, 44-year-old woman, and a 15-year-old girl, together representing 3 generations of the same family. According to London Mayor Edie Holder, a 9-year-old boy was also hospitalized following the attack and is recovering. The remains of 215 children have been found at a residential school in Canada. Former Cabinet Minister Jody Wilson-Raybould said that the time had come for the Prime Minister to change the law that would bring out a change in the policy for the Indigenous peoples.
Well, thanks for showing the picture of my community, and thanks for having me today. I mean, I have to say, I'm sure every Indigenous person and Canadians across the country, it's been really tough the last week or so. I find myself surprisingly feeling incredibly angry, of course sad with respect to the horrific revelations that came out of Kamloops, although they weren't a surprise. I'm also frustrated, but it was good to be back in my community, and I recognize that there's not a single Indigenous person that isn't impacted by the legacy of residential schools and the institutions in this country, and it's an important conversation to have. Well, I hope so. I am a hopeful person. As you've said, there have been issues that have come up that have elevated Indigenous reconciliation, the horrific legacy of colonialism that still exists in this country today. It feels a bit different, and I think that the difference is that we've had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report. We've had MMIWG's important report, and Canadians are becoming more aware. I know that Canadians are thirsty for more knowledge, and with that, I hope comes a continued effort and pressing governments to actually turn the words into action. That's what has caused me significant frustration and anger, and I know the same is true for many Indigenous leaders across the country and Canadians. So I hope this is a time where we actually proceed and change words into actions.
The tragedy that befell 215 children in Kamloops, British Columbia is extremely unfortunate. It has also been called genocide. Finding these tombs during the search has not been easy. There were some survivors during the incident. One of them is Douglas Hayadis, who tells the story of this event, and tears well up in his eyes.
And how that recent discovery brought it all back.
I didn't know there could be little kids that were buried there in it, and it broke down pretty bad. I was there from 71 to 75. And I could hear my friends and that crying, getting dragged downstairs, whatever. I wanted to get out of there so bad, but I was raped and abused mentally, physically, sexually, and all that. I hear about all these kids that might be my family over there buried too. I can't do this.
As the case of the mass bonds of 215 children comes to light, the heart-wrenching aspects of this case are coming to light. There are some revelations from the death certificate of the children in the residential school. It is said that some children committed suicide in an attempt to save themselves and some drowned in the river. A ride was organised by Sikh Mission Centre Gurdwara, Brampton and the Sikh Motorcycle Club of Ontario to commemorate the martyrs of June 6, 1984 and the attack on Akal Takht. On this occasion, an exhibition of photographs was put up in the Gurdwara to refresh the memory of that time, which will remain in this Gurdwara for the entire month of the June. Speakers paid homage to the martyrs after the bhog of the lessons dedicated to the memory of this massacre was found in the Gurdwara House. Ride joins Motorcycle Club of Ontario, Royal Enfield Motorcycle Club Toronto and Jeep Lovers Club. The ride started from the Gurdwara Nanak Mission Centre, ended at Dykes, Gurdwara, Hamilton, Gurdwara and then at Niagara Falls.
हाँ जी अज इत्थे गुरु नानक मिशन गुरुद्वारे आप पहुँचे हुए हैं गुरु नानक स्ट्रीट जिहड़ा ब्रैम्पटन दे विच इत्थों मोटरसाइकिल राइड शुरू होना टूर शुरू होना ते अज दा मेन मकसद ये कि आपां जिहड़े शहीद होए ने उन्हां दी याद करना ते जिहड़े अपने परिवार अजे अपने पंजाब दे विच हैगे ने जिहड़े अफैक्टेड होए ने उन्हां दी किसी न किसी तरीके दे नाल उन्हां नूं सानूं मदद करनी चाहिदी है एंड जो 84 च होया साडे दरबार साहब ते अपने सिखां ते जिहड़े जुल्म होए ने we're here to recognize those and look forward to getting justice done as well.
ਜਦੋਂ ਮਹੀਨਾ ਜੂਨ ਦਾ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਸੋ ਇਹ ਹੋ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦਾ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਇਤਿਹਾਸ ਨੂੰ ਭੁੱਲ ਜਾਈਏ। ਜੂਨ ਮਹੀਨੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਤੋਂ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਰਜਨ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੀ ਸ਼ਹਾਦਤ ਅਤੇ ਜੂਨ 1984 ਦੇ ਸਮੂਹ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਰਧਾਂਜਲੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਦਿਆਂ ਨਗਰ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਸਜਾਏ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਰਹੇ ਹਨ। ਕੋਵਿਡ ਕਰਕੇ ਇਹ ਨਗਰ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਇਸ ਸਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਸਕੇ। ਸਿੱਖ ਮੋਟਰਸਾਈਕਲ ਕਲੱਬ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨਗਰ ਕੀਰਤਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਅਗਵਾਈ ਦੇ ਹੇਠ ਹਮੇਸ਼ਾ ਹੀ ਭਾਗ ਹਿੱਸਾ ਔਰ ਆਪਣੀਆਂ ਸੇਵਾਵਾਂ ਨਿਭਾਉਂਦਾ ਆਇਆ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਅੱਜ 6 ਜੂਨ ਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਐਸੀ ਰਾਈਡ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੈਨੇਡੀਅਨ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਯੂਥ ਨੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਦੇ ਬੌਰਨ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਦੇਖ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਇੱਕ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਗਜ਼ਬ ਦੀ ਪ੍ਰਦਰਸ਼ਨੀ ਲਾਈ ਗਈ ਕਿ 1 ਜੂਨ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 6 ਜੂਨ ਤੱਕ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਕੀ ਕੁਝ ਵਾਪਰਿਆ, ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਰੈਫਰੈਂਸ ਲਾਇਬ੍ਰੇਰੀ ਲੁੱਟੀ ਗਈ ਅਤੇ ਜੋ ਨਿਰਦੋਸ਼ ਜੋ ਸ਼ਰਧਾਲੂ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਕਤਲ ਕੀਤਾ ਗਿਆ। ਇਹ ਸ਼ਰਧਾਂਜਲੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਣ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਥੇ ਇਕੱਤਰ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ। ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰਦਰਸ਼ਨੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਕ ਰਾਈਡ ਜੋ ਇੱਕ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਸੈਂਟਰ ਤੋਂ ਚੱਲ ਕੇ ਅੰਟਾਰੀਓ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਦਰਬਾਰ OKD ਇੱਥੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਜਾਵਾਂਗੇ। ਇਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਹੈਮਿਲਟਨ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਗੜ੍ਹ ਸਾਹਿਬ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਅੰਟਾਰੀਓ ਦੇ ਵੱਖੋ-ਵੱਖ ਸ਼ਹਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਜੋ ਦਸਤਾਰ ਦੀ ਪੂਰਨ ਮਾਨਤਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੋ ਸ਼ਰਧਾਂਜਲੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਕੌਮ ਜੋ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਦੇਗੀ। ਦਿਹਾੜਾ 6 ਜੂਨ ਦਾ ਹੈ, ਕੌਮ ਕਦੀ ਵਿਸਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਕਦੀ।
20ਵੀਂ ਸਦੀ ਦੇ ਮਹਾਨ ਸਿੱਖ ਸੰਤ ਜਰਨੈਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਕਿਹਾ ਸੀ ਜਿਸ ਦਿਨ ਭਾਰਤ ਦੀ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਨੇ ਦਰਬਾਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ ਹਦੂਦ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੈਰ ਪਾਏ ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੀ ਨੀਂਹ ਰੱਖੀ ਜਾਏਗੀ। ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਦੀ ਨੀਂਹ ਵੀ ਰੱਖੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ। ਖਾਲਿਸਤਾਨ ਦਾ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਵੀ ਅੱਜ ਜਾਰੀ ਹੈ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਕੌਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਰਾਜ ਹੋਇਆ ਕਰਦੇ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕੇਂਦਰ ਨੇ ਧਾਰਮਿਕ ਉੱਥੇ ਹਮਲਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਕੌਮ ਉਦੋਂ ਭੁੱਲਦੀ ਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੌਮ ਉਦੋਂ ਮਰਦੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਘੱਲੂ ਘਾਰੇ ਜਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਭੁੱਲ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਸੀ। ਅੱਜ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੋਏ ਵਚਨਬੱਧਤਾ ਵੀ ਦੁਹਰਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੀ ਕੌਮ ਦੇ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਅਤੇ ਸਾਡੀ ਕੌਮ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਅਸੀਂ ਹਰ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਹਰ ਸਮੇਂ ਚੁੱਕਦੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ। ਸੋ ਉਹ ਦਿਨ ਦੂਰ ਨਹੀਂ ਜਿਸ ਦਿਨ ਕੌਮ ਝੰਡੇ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਝੰਡਿਆਂ ਬਰਾਬਰ ਚੱਲਣਗੇ। ਅੱਜ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਮਿਸ਼ਨ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਥੇ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧਕ ਵੀਰ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਅੰਟਾਰੀਓ ਮੋਟਰਸਾਈਕਲ ਕਲੱਬ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੋਟਰਸਾਈਕਲ ਰਾਈਡ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਇੰਤਜ਼ਾਮ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ। ਇੱਥੋਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੇ ਚਿਰ ਬਾਅਦ ਰਾਈਡ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋਣੀ ਆ ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਡਿਕਸੀ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਫਿਰ ਸ਼ਹੀਦਗੜ੍ਹ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਜਾਣੀ ਹੈ। ਸੋ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੀ, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਵੀ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਕਵਰੇਜ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਸਾਰੇ ਸੰਗਤ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ ਰਿਮੈਂਬਰ ਕਰਨੇ ਨੂੰ 1984 ਦਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਜੈਨੋਸਾਈਡ। ਬਹੁਤ ਪਾਵਰਫੁਲ ਮੂਮੈਂਟ ਆ ਸਾਡੇ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਰਿਮੈਂਬਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਪਰ ਆਲਸੋ ਹੀਲਿੰਗ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ ਸਾਡੇ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਐਂਡ ਸੋ ਜਦ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਰਿਮੈਂਬਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਨੈਕਸਟ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਐਜੂਕੇਟ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਤੱਕ ਫਿਰ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਟਰੂਥ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਹੀਲਿੰਗ ਵੀ ਬਣਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਸੋ ਹੈਪੀ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਥੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਹੋਏ ਹਾਂ। ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਇੰਪੈਕਟਸ ਆ 1984 ਜੈਨੋਸਾਈਡ ਦੀਆਂ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇੰਟਰਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨਲ ਟਰਾਮਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਇਹ ਕਦੇ ਭੁੱਲਣੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ। ਐਂਡ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਇੱਥੇ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਐਂਡ ਸਾਡੇ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਰਿਮਾਈਂਡ ਕਰਨੀ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਕੰਟਰੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਜੈਨੋਸਾਈਡ ਹੋਇਆ ਸੀ ਇੰਡੀਜਨਸ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਜ਼ ਦੇ। ਐਂਡ ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਇਸ ਲੈਂਡ 'ਤੇ ਵੀ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦਾ ਜੈਨੋਸਾਈਡ ਰਿਮੈਂਬਰ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਪਰ ਆਲਸੋ ਇੱਥੇ ਇੰਡੀਜਨਸ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਜੈਨੋਸਾਈਡ ਰਿਮੈਂਬਰ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ। ਐਂਡ ਇਕੱਠੇ ਹੋ ਕੇ ਇਸ ਦੇਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਟਰੂਥ ਐਂਡ ਰੈਕਨਸੀਲੀਏਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀਲ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਐਂਡ ਆਪਣੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਜਾ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ as well. So thank you ਜੀ, ਐਂਡ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
US President Joe Biden called on former US President Barack Obama, talked about affordable healthcare for Americans and the advancement of millions of Americans. He said 31 million Americans have benefited from the campaign.
Really good news, folks. Great news. 31 million people are now covered by the Affordable Care Act. And I know someone who's going to really want to know that number is up as high as it is. But I got to call this fella.
Mr. President.
Hey, Mr. President, how you doing, pal?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing? Joe Biden, we did this together. We always talked about how if we could get the principle of universal coverage established, we could then build on it. And I just want to say how proud I am of what you've done now with the American Rescue Plan.
When we open up the enrollment period again and reduce the cost, 1.2 million people signed up on top of the 30 million. And look how many times they tried to defeat your legislation.
The ACA, later known as Obamacare, which I take pride in.
And I keep reminding people.
It was built on a model that combined good ideas from Democrats and Republicans. You know, you and I have both had some tragic, illnesses in our families. We know what it's like emotionally. And that's compounded if a family, when somebody who they love deeply gets sick, is now also trying to figure out, how do I pay the bills? Can I get the best treatment? Am I going to have to mortgage my house? Am I going to have to drain all my retirement savings?
You were so good when Bo was dying. I literally remember sitting on the bed with him within a week or so of him passing away and thinking, what in God's name would I do if I got a notice from the insurance company say you've outrun your coverage?
The effort was worth it. The families that have been able to care for their loved ones, be cured, have access to care, that all makes it worthwhile. So I just want to thank your administration and all the folks who've been working on this for now building on it and continuing to expand it.
If I had a dime for everyone who said to me over the last 2 years campaigning and as president.
Prop Fences mourns the discovery of skeletons of 215 indigenous children from a shared grave found at an old residential school in Kamloops, British Columbia. At the same time, he urged the religious and political authorities to shed more light on such a horrific case. But he did not comply with a request from the Canadian Prime Minister to apologize to the Pope 2 days ago. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau demanded that the Vatican apologize and take responsibility, but the Pope did not do anything but lament the incident. It should be noted that from the 19th century to the 1970s, more than 150,000 indigenous children were forcibly sent to state-funded Christian schools. Most of these schools were run by the Roman Catholic Missionary Union. All of this was done as a part of the campaign to bring these indigenous children into Canadian society.
We wish to apologize in a very particular way for the instances of physical and sexual abuse that occurred in those schools. We wish to state publicly that we acknowledge they were inexcusable, intolerable, and a betrayal of trust in one of its most serious. I don't think the Catholic groups should have agreed to the invitation of the government to operate these places, because although they may have thought they can have some benefit of preaching the gospel or whatever, at the heart of who we are is the family, and taking kids away from their families that's just not right.
I think it's important for everybody to take action, not just the Pope. He holds a position, but every single individual citizen of this land has power. We all have power with our voices. I don't want to comment on church leaders. I think they've dropped the ball long enough. I'm focusing on my Indigenous friends and community and what they need, what we all need to do as settlers of immigrants.
He's our spiritual leader in that way, but the Catholic Church is on the ground. and with religious orders and with dioceses. That's, I think, where this needs to grow. And sometimes it's doing better, sometimes not, but that's where we need to put our energy and time.
Just to make my presence known, that I, as a dweller of Toronto, that I am ashamed of the way the church and the government have not acted yet.
We need to know more about them, and we need to, at each one of them, have a proper recognition and honor for the children who died. And the great tragedy I can see is they died far away from home.
Canada is embarrassed by the discovery of skeletons of 215 children from Canada's Kamloops school. The Archbishop of Toronto has also expressed deep sorrow over the incident, and the Catholic Church should take more responsibility for the incident. He also lamented the Pope's failure to apologize.
And, excuse me, that was probably the safest time in my life. When they came to get us from here, the first year we went in a livestock truck.
And the next year?
They came out with an army truck. And they drove us back to the school in these trucks, and they unloaded us like we were just little animals. The first things they did was they took us down to our cleansing room, where they cut off our hair. Then they deloused us. Then they scrubbed us down with disinfectant like we were diseased animals. Sorry. For 3 days, I went into a depression so deep. And a grief that I never knew I had.
We have knowledge of maybe about 20 children that died in the school over that 80-year period. I actually don't know if that reference comes from that school or from another school.
Don't get out of line, because there's the graveyard. And there's also the river. Those were warnings that were given to us as little tiny children, 5, 6 years old.
So that's all we have in this bulletin. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more updated news.